Hello and welcome to Data Conversations Over Coffee with myself, Craig Stewart. I'm down in Cape Town, so studio environment has moved from Linden down to the beautiful company gardens just at the foot of Table Mountain. And I've got with me a good friend, someone who's been part of DataCon, CDAO since the beginning, I'm pretty sure. 2016, I think you and I first met. Junior Muka from Woolies. Junior, how are you doing? So good to have you in studio.
Good, thanks for having me, Craig. Yeah, absolutely excited to be here.
Yeah, and I mean, Junior is so excited to be here. He even wore his Corinium and CDAO
Of course, I had to.
Scarf, which is a relic from physical events, which are actually coming back at the end of September.
Just to say I miss physical events.
Amen, don't we all? But while we can't do that, it's cool to have these conversations and get everybody involved. So Junior, I wanted to just quickly have a good conversation with you around what have you been up to in the last 12 months since the last DataCon. You told me now you're doing your PhD in data quality and especially around the automation of data quality using AI and ML, which is pretty good stuff. I mean, data quality, absolutely massive. So why don't you talk us a little bit through about that, and obviously you've got a new role as well, which you can tell us a bit about.
Yeah, so a lot has happened, Craig. I've been really busy and really, taking advantage of the pandemic and, focus on my studies, focus on my work. So absolutely, you've just mentioned, I've made a lot of progress in my PhD, so busy with that, hoping to finish off toward the end of next year. So this is a PhD program in computer and information sciences with one of the universities in the US, the University of Arkansas. And and in the meantime, I've just been also just forging along and working hard at Woolworths. And now moving out of the IT environment into the business to help influence, the course of data management a little bit more from a business perspective. So that it. I just started a new role as data steward in our food group. I'm looking forward to that and quite excited about the new journey.
All right, perfect. So tell us a little bit more about what your I guess, first 100 days is going to look like as a data steward. Actually in business, as you said, you moved out of IT. It's no longer just the sort of frameworks around data governance and quality and management. You're actually going to be the champion of all those data fundamentals within business. What are some of your objectives in the first sort of 100 days that you're going to be in the role?
Look, Woolies is a big business, so there's quite a lot to learn still. So I plan to meet up with a lot of the different stakeholders that I'm going to be working with. I have gotten to understand a lot of the processes from an IT perspective, but now that I'm in business, I have to meet respective stakeholders and really understand the entire business value chain and the data that it generates. And so there's a lot of learning and a lot of contact to build my network within the business, and really just to understand and set out the strategy on how we're going to be approaching key topic for us, data quality, which is also close to my heart. We busy with a lot of other initiatives as well, from metadata management and data cataloging and stuff like that. So absolutely, so it's really building my network, getting to understand the business, but at the same time, setting out the strategy on how we approach some of the data management fundamentals within the business, really.
So where's Woolies, and especially the food division that you're moving into, where are they in terms of being really receptive to, taking their data, I wouldn't say seriously, because it sounds maybe then like they're not, but really kind of moving it to the next level of quality, governance, management, and then kind of using that for analytics and insights?
No, absolutely. We're very serious about that. It's a very key part of what we do. Even in my days in IT, in my data architect role, a lot of my time was spent on enabling exactly that. So spent a lot of time in the business, and we've got a very matured data competency within Woolworths. A lot of work still to be done as well, like everyone else, but absolutely serious. I mean, it's a key part of our strategy, actually.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit then around data quality. Obviously, it's close to your heart. So I assume data quality at source is a really big focus area. How are you managing that? I guess it's kind of, maybe talk about, because a lot of the conversations I have with this is around in a banking environment. So you've got your sort of, frontline staff, you're collecting data on customers and all those sorts of things. Where does it kind of sit with you guys in the food group? Where's the data quality at source? How are you managing that? How are you then kind of getting that into the rest of business?
Yeah, I think it's very similar across industries, really. I mean, the principles are the same, in terms of, making sure you have your validations at the point of capture, you have, trained your people and raise awareness around data quality, because often that's the problem, right? When the people who actually create or capture the data are not necessarily data quality aware in many cases. But I think that's exactly how we address it. The guys get trained on the importance of the data that they capture and the decision making that it enables eventually in the business. So absolutely, it's the same. The principles are the same. The guys, understand how important that is. There's still, again, there's still some work to be done in certain areas. But really, the same way you would have approached it in any other industry is exactly how retail in general, not just Woolies, retail in general will approach it in the same manner as well.
How do you get people to really sustain their respect for data quality, understanding why it's important? Because it's not necessarily part of their everyday job. Do you link it to KPIs, reward, all those sorts of things, so that they kind of go, I need to make sure that when I'm collecting this data that I'm getting it right, it's in the right format, it's not slightly different to what they're expecting. How do you really get people to...
Yeah, I think my favorite approach toward that is actually, to, after raising awareness, going more with a bit of a reward system. Because I've seen people going with a more punitive approach, if you will, and I don't really, subscribe to that thinking. So I think there's a lot more, output. There's a lot more commitment to ensuring the quality of the data when people know they can be rewarded for it, rather than if they don't get it right, they will be punished for it. So I prefer the more positive way toward it by rewarding people for ensuring quality of the data rather than punishing them. So sometimes you need a balance of both. There's KPIs attached to it. There's, if necessary, there has to be a little bit of name and shame as well. Naming and shaming can help also, but not my favorite approach. I more prefer to highlight the positive and make that known to everybody else, and I find people just follow when you do things in that manner. All
right, I'm starting to read quite a lot more and have more conversations around data integrity, and really looking at the authenticity of data, knowing where it's come from. Obviously, now with POPIA coming in, data privacy, etc. What are some of the sort of thoughts that you've got on that? I even read now, I'm actually on the plane on the way down here, around using blockchain for data integrity.
So it's a big area, and I think there's still a lot of research going on in that space. Using blockchain technology to trace the origin of the data. But I think it's quite important to have your processes in place first. So I think the technology is not going to come and solve all our problems without having set our processes and bedded them down. So that's one of the things. And that's one of the things that we're really good. At Woolies with. We've got very, very quality processes in place. So the use of such technology to enable something like tracing the origin of our product, I think becomes easier when the technology has matured. And blockchain as a technology itself, yes, there's a lot of pocket of use cases here in South Africa, but I haven't seen a whole lot just yet, and it's an area that's still growing. But absolutely, it's a key area that could be quite transformational to data management if we get it right. So that's the one area around data integrity. But you also touch on data privacy, which is a key topic for everybody.
It's massive at the moment.
POPI is around the corner, effective 1st of July, right? So everybody...
Effective, we'll see how compliant everybody is.
Exactly, So everybody is obviously, making sure that come 1st of July, they are found on the right side of the fence. So that's a key area. It's a compliance issue. It's a legal issue. Everybody just has to comply. And for us, though, I think it goes beyond just compliance. It just goes with the way we are responsible as a business. So as you know, Woolworths is a very responsible business, and we take personal identifiable data very seriously. So that's one of the ways we approach business. Not necessarily because now there's POPI and that we need to comply, but it's in the way we've been doing business all along. It
should be part of the sort of fabric of the organization that you're using customer data ethically.
Exactly.
Already. So let's talk sort of the last sort of segment of this, really around the PhD that you do, because data quality, as we've talked about, is a massive sort of area, but it's quite a labor-intensive, time-consuming thing. And now you're kind of looking at using AI and ML to really automate data quality checks and balances, I assume, obviously looking at any sort of anomalies that come up. Tell us a little bit about how you're going to become Dr. Junior Muka based on data
interesting.
quality.
Yeah, so firstly, the area of interest is data quality, but specifically data quality for food composition data. That is a massive problem, by the way, on the African continent and in many other places. Long story short, there are many ways of collecting food composition data, and the most accurate way happens to be, taking samples to a lab. That's the most accurate of getting to a real composition of food. But that, as you would imagine, is a very expensive way of doing so. So as a result of that cost and many other issues, especially on the African continent, maybe political will and whatever, food composition data is one data domain that has it suffers from a lot of missing data. Most food composition databases have a lot of missing data. So I think what I'm looking at is firstly around that data quality issue, but also around how to solve that problem, not using traditional method of imputing or filling those gaps, but rather using machine learning techniques to impute food composition data, and then comparing the quality of the data that we get in the end. How does it compare to data generated via traditional method? One of the traditional methods, in case you're not aware, is that we borrow a lot of data. So we will have missing data. You don't have data for whatever food product, and then you would typically go to the US database or the UK database and find a similar product and borrow that data basically. That's a bit simplistic the way I'm explaining.
So it's kind of close, but it's not the same.
But it's not the same. I mean, we have different climatic conditions, different soil compositions and stuff like that. So we know it's not the same, but we feel, well, it's close enough. But from an accuracy perspective, you want to get closer and closer to accurate. So it's really looking at cheaper, more cost-effective method of imputing missing food composition data, thereby increasing the quality of the data. So my research area is very much in that.
And what's the reason behind that? Is that making sure that customers know what's in the food? Is it sort of more from a growth and yield?
So that's one perspective. Food labeling is one key use case of food composition data. So that's more what affects the retail side of the world. But then, I mean, think about it in terms of agricultural policies, in terms of food nutrition policies, and all those depend on the quality of food composition data. So if you're going to be developing feeding schemes for your schools, for example, for kid in early childhood education, maybe certain areas in your country might be missing on certain or lacking on certain nutrients. You want to develop policies that channel them toward the food that will fill that gap. But then if the quality of the data is poor, you imagine the decisions you're making will also be poor.
For sure. So it's really an area of data science for social good, right?
Very much. So that was a key part. So maybe just to clarify that it may sound a little bit of a coincidence perhaps, but my PhD research had nothing to do with my day job, with Woolies.
Yeah.
It happens to be in the food area, but
Yeah.
it had absolutely nothing to do with Woolies. And it was very much for social good. I'm a very proud African, and I saw that as an African problem. And I want to bring some contribution to solving that problem. So absolutely. So a lot of South Africa is probably the one African country with the most accurate food composition data. But
Okay.
even here, I think it's only about 40% of our food composition data that is collected through chemical analysis.
Okay.
The rest is collected via the different other methods, which we all know are not very accurate. And that's the best. So imagine in the rest of Africa, there's a massive problem on the quality of food composition data. So if we could come up with scientifically accepted method of imputing that data using machine learning and AI techniques, that will help with a lot of countries. There is some work as well in other part of the world doing exactly the same thing that I've come across. So that's what I'm doing for my PhD.
Well, good stuff. I mean, it's so great that you're doing it from a social good point of view, especially 100%. Nutrition across the continent, which is fantastic.
Big.
So
absolutely. I mean, that you can link to the UN sustainable goals, for example, eradicating poverty and hunger and stuff like that. It's what drove me into this topic.
Perfect. Well, Junior, thanks so much for joining us here in this great studio that we've got in the company gardens here in Cape Town. The next time that we'll be together is for the DataCon Exchange physical event that we're doing 19th of October. So we're back, limited numbers, keep everything safe, but I think people are dying to get back to, maybe it's not the best term to use, but people are very excited about getting back to physical events and just having that sort of one-on-one connection and conversation. So thanks so much for supporting that, but just in general, thanks so much for supporting our events and coming into that.
You're welcome, Craig. Very good. Thank you.
Absolutely.